Hi, my name is Zachary Foley, and I'll be doing vlog number one. You start the chapter talking about your title of the book, The Smartphone Paradox, and what it really means. And it's this idea of there's the good things about the smartphone, but there's bad things, and you're to be discussing which outweighs the other. And you go on to say that you'll take a more cynical look, but in my opinion, as I go on to the book, you take more of the statement that you later say on from the that technology is neither good nor bad nor is it neutral. I feel like that is the take for this whole the first two chapters that you wrote. So when you say in the beginning that it's a more central perspective of technology, I would argue it's more that it lines up more with that statement. I want to start with when you're talking about your daughter writing that letter to you about your technology use. And right when you said that, I remember a story when I was babysitting my cousin. And the reason I was chosen out of all my other siblings was because my sister had first babysitted her, but she told her parents that Corinne, my sister, was on her phone constantly and that she wouldn't play with her and pretty much be in the moment with her, and she would just be on her phone. So I really connected with that and how adolescents, I think we say that even though they're growing up in this generation, that they're going to be the ones that have the biggest issue. But like you go on in the second chapter when it's not about the age and all that, it's about their brains. And when you're younger, you have this imaginative brain. You don't need this other stimulus from the iPhone or any other piece of technology. So it makes total sense that we see this trend in your daughter and my cousin, that they're just confused while we're on our phones why we need the stimulus, because all they need is their brains to have all the fun they need, and we somehow feel the need to always have this piece of technology. And then you go on to, and then you with that trend of younger people, you go on to say that we in high school and in college that we get this idea of the iPhone being good and bad from different people. We're getting yelled at for one and being told that it's so awesome that we get to have this new piece of technology in our lives. And I had the same experience in high school where there were some teachers that were like, no cell phones at all, get out of the classroom. And then some that were like, made it part of it because, like you, they recognize that it's now part of the learning environment. And when you talked about, if it's about like your study with the narcissism and all that, and you found out that the people that actually weren't on their phone were narcissists were actually the more narcissistic, which I found fascinating. I even talked to my boss. I was reading the chapter at work, and he found that very interesting because it would seem that it was a great inference of yours to say that someone using their iPhone is way more narcissist because they're involved in themselves on the phone, but in reality they're involved in other people's lives on their phones. So yeah, I just that's what I took it as and how I made sense of it in my brain. And then the next part of the chapter one, that I found really interesting was when you're talking about with a student about Shanti. I think I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but Shanti's experience with her phone and how she said that whether you like it or not, your phone reels a lot. No, that's what you said. Just about the how phones show like economic status, but I would argue in our day and age, it is not as much about what phone you have, which I believe is maybe an issue, but it's more about how we use the phone. Just especially in a political environment, people in our age group judge you based on how you use your phone and how you use the social media and how you use the stuff on your phone, and not as about what phone you have. They might make a sly comment every once in a while, like, "Oh, is that a Generation 6?" But the actual like core of discussion is how are you using this phone nowadays? Just people are yelling at people on social media and saying all this stuff about how they're using it during this time of political heightenedness. And I don't believe that it's just because we're going through this particular time. I feel like that has happened since, I'm going to say, since the election of Donald Trump, because the political climate became so polarized at that point and during that election. And I feel like that caused a lot more, I would say, bullying based on that and how you use your phone and how you, and your politics. And that's, so I would argue that how we use our phone right now is above what phone we have, and I would say that it used to be that used to not be really a question. It used to be just what phone you have, but now I believe it is how you use the phone, and not really about the economic you having that phone, what economic group that puts you in. And then just going back to the technology is neither good nor bad nor is neutral. To make that sense in my head, it's because if it's all of those things, so it can't be one of them. So of course it's nor good nor bad nor is it neutral, because as you went on to say about the story about the gun, which made total sense to me, is that a gun is not inherently bad nor good nor anything. Even though it's used to do harm, it can be used for good or could be used for bad, which could make it neutral, but it can't be neutral because of all these other factors that you discussed in that conversation with the student. So I first was like, well, good, it's more of a balancing game if what outweighs, but that's a totally different discussion. That actual statement makes a lot more sense because it's all of those things, so it can't be either of those things. Going on to chapter 2, when you start to talk about the evolution of the iPhone, you were talking about Steve Jobs and all that, and what I started reading it as, because I recently watched The Social Network for our paper, it seemed very similar to Mark Zuckerberg's story of creating Facebook, because, as you said in chapter 2, they are out. They have this arrogance of the revolutionary idea they're going to make, and that arrogance is really shown in Mark Zuckerberg's story of Facebook and how Steve Jobs used people's ideas. He didn't really create the idea for the iPhone; he just nitpicked it and made it perfect. And you made it on his and said he was the creator of the iPhone, just as Zuckerberg got the idea from the twins and all those other people, and he fine-tuned it and made Facebook. So did he really make Facebook? And that's what the lawsuit is really about. And I would say Jobs and him are similar in that sense of creating these two products. That did they actually invent, or did they just nitpick it and make it into what it is now? Wow. And that goes back to, wow. And I got onto my next point I wrote down. I'm just going to my next point. I found it ironic when you were talking about how the media has desensitized our smartphone addictions, just as the media argues that video games and other technologies are desensitizing us to different subjects. So I thought that was a really interesting, really ironic situation. And then going on, when you were trying to talk to K through 12 students, I just wanted to make a note that I think the addiction starts in those grades because we're malleable, but we're also so rebellious. So when we're in that place when people want to say the iPhone's bad, make sure you watch your use. We're rebelling against that, just because that's the age where we rebel. And I feel like you're more likely to we become sponges again in college in the sense that we're open to change about our habits that we learned through our rebellious actions and just through growing up. College allows us to change those things and figure out what we really want to be. And the idea of this and what you were saying, that making it an addiction polarizes it. It's either that you're addicted or you're not, and most would say you're addicted, so you're automatically to back away from it. And that's why I agree with Jenna Cohn's statement because each smartphone user is different. I wouldn't when I took that quiz for our blog, it showed me that I was like, I need to talk to an addiction spell, which was alarming to me. Because I wouldn't feel I'm addicted because of the way I use it. The how, it's the how, because I wouldn't say I'm on it on social media. I would say I'm on my phone regularly, listening to music, because it's a great interest of mine. I'm watching YouTube videos of artists and all that. And I don't see it as bad. I see it as furthering, because I'm also an arts major, a theater major. I would see it as furthering my my atmosphere of art. So I would agree with her statement as it's the user and how they use it. It's not every person that uses their phone 5 hours a day is addicted. It's how are they using those 5 hours? Are they on social media and demeaning their self image, or like me, are they spending a lot of that time on YouTube watching those videos, or looking at chords on guitar stuff to learn chords? Is that music interest? But overall, I was reluctant to start reading this because most of the stuff we've been reading has, to me, felt this repetitive of is technology good or bad, and using these metaphors and all these statements. But this, to me, started to really help me question my use and the development of the iPhone, how it's so much bigger of good or bad. It's affected our economics, our politics, our social interaction in good ways and bad ways, and I think I understand when you said cynical that you think that it's affecting us more and bad. Not saying that there's no good, but it's affecting us more negatively. I would say, as I'm reading this, it's true because I really haven't thought about a lot of the stuff you're saying in this and thought about it in that way. So, and I'll bring back to the point. I'm changing me. I probably wouldn't have been as interested in this stuff as I was in high school because I was rebellious. I was focused on other stuff. In college, I feel like I'm just ready to absorb and acknowledge my faults. Sorry. And open up to this learning. After reading those 2 chapters, I'm excited to continue learning, and I can't wait for the next vlog. Thank you.